This is Matthew Holt with Health 2.0. Delighted to have on the line, on the video, or whatever you call it these days, Darren Spevick. Darren's the managing partner at Eventum Partners and a recovering Arsenal fan. We were just talking before we hit the record button here about Leicester City beating both Arsenal, Chelsea, and Tottenham and everybody else to the league title this year. So it's a wild, crazy year in English soccer, at least. But let's turn the topic. Darren, thanks for joining us. And let's turn the topic a bit to health technology and what's going on there. So, unless you want to have a quick comment about the football, which is what is the big story of the year.
I'll take my comments for next year. Thanks.
Next year, when Arsenal will be losing to somebody else again, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, Eventum Partners lives in the world of recruiting, headhunting, and finding people for predominantly companies working across the globe, but obviously keen interest in health technology. So, Darren, let's start more general. Obviously, we've been looking at this for a long time. You guys have been associated with Health 2.0 for a little bit. What are you seeing as kind of some of the bigger trends that some of your customers are getting interested in health and health technology?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different trends depending on what kind of organizations you're talking to. The bigger corporates, whether they're the pharma companies, the insurance, and the med device companies, are finally seeing to play in the space and looking at what they do. And I think their challenge is trying to figure out how do they make it work, how do they commercialize it, what does it mean for their business models. So they're the kind of people they're recruiting are very much on that strategy side at the moment to lay those foundations and then figure things out. On the smaller startup and health tech companies, there's no shortage of innovation and new ideas. I think that the trend that we're seeing, or the challenge, what they're looking for is equally, how do they commercialize? How do they create the partnerships with industry or with the payers, the providers, to actually get the products to market? And do they have those commercial skills to do that? I think they've clearly got the innovation, creativity, the developing skills seem to be being drawn in, but there seems to be a real gap on the commercial piece at the moment. Yeah,
I think that's right. And when we get to Barcelona, which is coming up May 10th through 12th, we're going to be talking both about funding stuff, but there'll be a number of different panels looking at sort of commercialization frameworks and how it's being put together. Remind the people who are listening which areas Eventum works in, including which regions of the world that you guys are focused on, and if there's any variation there.
So most of our work, probably 80%, very much focused on Europe, UK and Europe, but we do work across the US and Asia as well through some partners that we've got in those countries. The kind of roles that we recruit to be senior positions, senior management through to C-suite and non-exec, a lot in commercial, but also operational, clinical, medical, to HR, finance. So most senior management level roles within organizations. And our clients have ranged from some very small early stage startup that we've met at Health 2.0 over the last few years, through to some large multinational corporates as well.
And are you seeing any differences in the business problems and the rate of commercialization between those regions? Are you seeing any differences within Europe, where most of your business is, or is it or is it pretty much the same problems people are going after? I'm very interested in this sort of diversity of experiences across different countries, but also basically some pretty common problems I'm seeing. So I wonder what your take on that is.
I think comparing, it's easiest for us to compare the US and Europe. In Europe, I think in the US, there seems to be the perception that the ability to get product to market is easier and quicker. But when I was out at Santa Clara in October talking to guys in the US, they said we're just as complicated with 50 odd states and all the insurance companies. It's not as easy as people always think. But we've seen a lot of UK and European companies who have struggled to commercialize this side of the pond move to the US because they can raise the money and do it there. Across Europe, there's different challenges, whether some of the countries are more insurance orientated. The UK is clearly very much NHS dominated. So there's lots of different dynamics in all of those. I think the one common problem all markets face is with the regulators and the regulatory bodies playing catch up to figure out, well, how do we monitor this? How do we pay for this? How do we reimburse it? So everyone's got that as a common problem. But I think the attitude towards risk and trying new tech is far easier in the US than the UK and Europe, where we're a little bit more reserved and there's more barriers to entry and it takes just that bit longer.
Yeah, I think that's an area we'll be discussing a lot in the next week or so. My sense is that the US is fine. We've obviously had in some ways the US is doing catch up to the UK and some of the Scandinavian countries in terms of putting in the basic infrastructure of the EMRs over the last few years, whereas a lot of that happened, especially on the outpatient GP basis in those other countries. Denmark was at 99.9% EMR use back in the early 2000s. So you're seeing some catch up here on the sort of the infrastructure side. But in terms of obviously venture capital, sort of entrepreneurship, risk taking, that sort of Silicon Valley model, the US has obviously been the model for the world and the UK too, and it's been a different flavor. I think that you're right. The complexity of bringing products to markets and then getting them used at scale is huge. And we have that problem. There's nowhere in the world that problem doesn't exist. But on the flip side, there's nowhere in the world the problem of figuring out how do we manage populations of people, and get the best bang for our dollars, pounds, euros, whatever they are, is an ongoing problem. And obviously technology's got a big role in that. Give me a sense for the kind of major skills that, particularly the big corporates who are trying to get into this are looking for. What's, if someone's watching this knocking around looking for a role and they're either in a corporate or in a startup and think they can make a big difference from a corporate, what are your kind of clients? What types of sort of people and attributes and attitudes they're looking for, rather than check the box for a particular qualifications?
I think from the big corporate side, most of the demand seems to be around the strategy at this point in time. What does this mean to us? How do we make it work? I think the biggest challenge the corporates are going to face is how do you actually execute and implement innovation within their business and make it mean something? Because they're still doing pretty well from their core business and making healthy margins of core products. So how is this really going to change and really affect the bottom line? I don't think anyone's really answered that yet, but they believe it's important and they are investing in that. So there has been that change. So the corporates are looking at the commercial and the strategy. How is this going to work for them? Or how do they partner with a range of organizations to bring all these things together? Because they know that a big pharma company can't be a health tech company. They just don't have that DNA. So how do they work with them, whether it's incubators or investments or other models?
And what about the kinds of people that they're looking for? I mean, there's been a certain type of, it's not a majority, but there's been a certain type of person who's been a large healthcare company executive for many years. If you look at flavors of people who are doing startups tend to be different. Is there a new type of person and role, of attribute or personality type that's emerging to sort of fill that gap, or is this? Or are the leopards changing their spots from the sort of the big corporate guys? What kind of people are you being asked to go and find?
I think the most interesting dynamic has been that some of the big companies have been willing to look outside of healthcare, knowing that actually these skills aren't necessarily within our domain. So they've been bringing some people in from technology, from FMCG, the consumer environments, who could bring a different perspective. And challenge the status quo, because these skills, this experience just doesn't exist within the pharma environment. The challenge will be, will those people be given the length of rope to go and explore and to challenge and to do things differently or not? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But that's been interesting. They have been willing to look outside of their normal four walls to try and find some new people. I don't think we haven't seen too many people jump ship from small startup company into the big corporates, because there's such a big cultural divide that it just doesn't always work out. So it tends to have been from big corporate to big corporate, but corporate where they have used innovation or they have worked in a slightly different way to challenge that.
Yeah, I want to think probably that when you start seeing I kind of think of the role of recruiters and headhunters and whatever your industry is called, I don't know anymore. There's like the more people we see showing up at Health Tenrove in that world, that means that there is more interest in, that's an upswing indicator. I suspect when we see a lot of startup guys trying to get jobs in big pharma, that's probably a reverse indicator.
Yes, absolutely. It's all going wrong then.
Yeah, that's what it means. So, and I've actually frequently we have people, who are once had someone who signed a big contract with Health 2.0, got so excited about the work we were doing, they left whatever big company they were with and did a startup. Was going, no, you should have signed the big contract before you left, please. Yeah. All right. So just to wrap for people, a couple of things. So for your business, you told us a little bit about it, but give a little bit about Eventum Partners, how old you guys are, how big you are, how many searches you're doing, what kind of, I know you're doing any outside of the space we talked about. Just give me a little bit of a commercial.
So we've been going 3 years. I've been in healthcare, pharma, life science recruitment for the best part of 18 years. I started life as a sports scientist and research into exercise performance before falling into recruitment. There's now a team of 4 of us based in London. But also we're a part of an international network of healthcare life science recruiters. That's about 150 people globally through 25 other boutique organizations. So there's a bigger network that we're a part of. We're typically working on 3 or 4 searches at any one point in time. And those can be anything, I say, from medical director through to a chief exec through to a non-exec, whatever the company is looking for. But we are very specialist. This is what we do. This is the world that we are working in. And we're involved in a number of networking groups all around the digital health tech environment. So able to hopefully connect people and bring a different perspective and hopefully bring some interesting talent to the table to help these companies grow. That's great. So I'll make sure that your contact details are next to your video here. But it's definitely an interesting world that you guys are in. I hear a lot of people on both sides, people looking for people all the time, and they're also, people especially coming from doctors and others who are trying to figure out how do they get into the business world, who are on the sort of supply side. So it's an interesting connection world that you and we kind of both play, but in different flavors of it. So I think it's so long as we're all keeping busy, that's good news. And let's hope it stays that way for a while. I think absolutely. We're going through a massive technology and system transformation. There's no way it won't keep going, of course, whether we'll have the same amount of venture capital going into the business this year that we had last year. Although the number, we just did our numbers and this quarter was up on the same quarter last year, even though, that was a record from the previous year, even though the big jump was in 2014. So we'll see how it goes. And I think valuations are going down, but the amount of money is going up. So who knows? Absolutely. All right. I've been talking with Darren Spevick. He's the managing partner at Eventum Partners. If you are going to be in Barcelona, you will find Darren in the corridor and I'm probably on the bar. Probably in the bar with me, hopefully. And if not, I'll look forward to seeing you there, Darren, and hopefully people watching this get in touch. Thanks, Matthew. Looking forward to Barcelona. Okay, take care.